Book 1, Genesis, Chapter 2, Hey-Ho, Part 1. The symbolism was obvious, the meaning less so. I had hit a kind of Freudian trifecta: penis, father, water. There was the rocket, of course, a giant phallic outgassing hunk of metal and electronics, an erect representation of unfulfilled sexual desire, perhaps. Then there was Dad, or rather a Dad doppelganger in the form of Walter Cronkite, icon of the television age and as much a part of the space age as the 12 men who actually walked upon the moon. Walter Cronkite, the archetypal paternal figure for anyone alive as old as I. Cronkite was here at Cape Kennedy on the Florida coast, next to the Atlantic Ocean, doubtless a watery harbinger of birth and or death, to witness our launch, the world's first privately funded moonshot. For the initial time in the history of mankind, a rocket was going to fly in outer space under the banner flag of no nation. A new era of space commercialization was in the throes of birth, with independent rocket systems the attending physician. This was a test. This was only a flight test. If this had been an actual manned flight, I would have been on board the spacecraft. I was here instead, inside the blockhouse, wired for sound and ready to describe the action on worldwide television for Cronkite and CBS News. Rocketry is tricky business, as Paul had often said, and I would dutifully repeat in my report to Cronkite. The trick is to test failure out of your design by extensive trial and error and still more trial, Walter. Rocketry is a metaphor for life itself, the journey from drawing board idea to smoking, flaming reality. And that's the way it is, Walter. I had no desire to speak with Walter Cronkite or anybody else. A childish impatience with all of the testing raged within me. This baby step process seemed eternal. Much longer, and I might just prefer to sit atop one of our potential 12-story tall Molotov cocktails. No, the only thing I had left to say to any of the Earth's annoying billions would be spelled out, or more correctly expelled out, during the manned flight, our big ride into the sunset. Mile-long letters skywritten with rocket exhaust in the languages of the world. Adios, assholes. Sayonara, suckers. Ciao, chumps. Yes, indeed. Leave the unwashed hordes shaking raised fists and cursing lines of smoke in the sky. So I waited impatiently to speak with Cronkite. I could see the old fart on one of the dozens of monitors illuminating the blockhouse interior with the pulsing glow of cathode rays. I watched the inevitable escape of time on a digital countdown display and observed Paul staring intently at his own monitor, studying system checklists and occasionally looking up at our behemoth poised on pad 69, where our Elvis jumpsuited ground crew was pressurizing a pair of massive liquid oxygen fuel tanks, preparing the 6 million pound thrust booster for liftoff. It occurred to me that all of this was Paul's dream too, and this realization, this observation of simple irony, produced a wave of fear with the potential to destroy the fragile whole of the entire universe before me. Anything was possible here, even likely, so something like seeing Walter Cronkite's eyeballs spinning uncontrollably in their sockets was not necessarily extraordinary. Cronkite suddenly seemed to be having difficulty maintaining his balance, even though he was sitting down. "You'll never believe this," I yelled at Paul. "I think that bastard Cronkite found the Dom Perignon we stashed inside Mission Control." Paul was unconcerned with the Cronkite situation. T-minus 15 minutes and 30, he said. All systems are a go. Everybody stay cool. You especially, Chuck. Cronkite's 127 years old. I don't think he could find his own ass with both hands. Paul was right. Cronkite had steadied himself and appeared a harmless, grinning zombie before CBS cut from the telecast to a commercial illustrating the scourge of visible panty lines. With less than 30 seconds to launch, the deafening roar of the first engine stage was killing wildlife. We had evacuated the blockhouse and retreated to watch the spectacle from Mission Control, where Paul now waited to pick up the countdown at 10 seconds for the international broadcast. At T-minus 20 seconds, he turned to search the crowded control room for me. I was hunkered down in the back, naturally next to an exit, waving the Perignon in the air to attract his attention. Paul smiled broadly, giving me the thumbs-up signal, and mouthed our independent rocket system's motto: "We're going and we ain't stopping for shit." I had the champagne cork primed for liftoff at ignition, now only 5, 4, 3, 2... Chuck Rose! Call extension 5432. Ah, for fuck! Chuck Rose! Call extension 5432. Fuck me, what does that redneck want? I had been speaking to Acorn Engineering stockroom foreman about an unremitting personal dream and our general plans to fly away on a Saturn V class space vehicle when my supervisor's North Carolinian twang echoed throughout the cavernous Building 7 factory. "Chuck Rose, 5432. "He wants you," Mark Moding said, dotting his exclamation point with an index finger to my solar plexus. "You better haul ass or you'll be late for your planning meeting. Again." Moding seemed to be enjoying my agony. As a 27-year veteran, he watched the rise of Acorn Engineering Company from a single, nondescript building with a dirt parking lot and a half-dozen machines to a modern multi-complex of nearly 1,000 workers owning a virtual marketplace monopoly. Acorn had ridden the cresting wave of a disintegrating society, cranking out vandal-resistant toilets to a burgeoning prison industry and parlaying the massive influx of taxpayer dollars into other product lines. Wash fountains for public restrooms, drinking fountains for parks, showers for schools, whirlpool baths for hospitals, all made of stainless steel to last a lifetime, however long that might now be. I had missed Acorn's good old days when the old man, Acorn's ancient owner, would celebrate an exceptionally productive month with beer bashes in the dirt lot for his employees. Company legends were replete with tales of sex and drugs. If you worked for the old man from, say, the Summer of Love until the collapse of the Berlin Wall, you were more than likely married to a co-worker and or having an affair with at least another. Mark Moding had fond memories of pulling 10-hour acid-fueled shifts, but those days were long gone. The company's ribald ambiance had metastasized into an unrecognizable bastion of business decorum after that great flood of capital drowned its former charm. The financial success Acorn enjoyed had come fast enough to kill a rock star. However, this particular company was in no danger of flaming out in any sort of Hendrixian crash and burn. America was rapidly moving toward a prison-based economy, with half of the population guarding the slave labors of the other half, I supposed, with Acorn Engineering providentially poised as the world's leading and essentially only supplier of engineered stainless steel plumbing fixtures. The response from the old man to this sudden higher stakes challenge was to invest in the Wall Street Journal's contention that survival in the 90s business world depended entirely on management. So now Acorn was overrun with empty-suited vice presidents and junior executrons roaming office hallways in search of meetings. Shit, I had to go. I had a meeting to attend. I heard Mark's farewell over my shoulder, his goofy Bill Clinton, "I feel your pain" impression, but our communal suffering was short-lived. During the 10-minute drive to the main facility, I cracked 4 10-milligram black market Valium tablets in half, 1 immediate remnant for my head, 7 for the easy access of my breast pocket. By mid-morning, I had survived another unremarkable production meeting. Our suppliers were typically behind schedule because they couldn't anticipate turns of the universe any better than we could. The word onus had been uttered 6 times by 3 different people, though not by me, because I endured these daily confabs relatively silent, volunteering only the civilian equivalent of name, rank, and serial number while monitoring my body's rhythms in a struck pose. Leaning forward, elbows propped on the conference table, hands framing nose in symbolic prayer to the secular god owning jurisdiction. The less I had to say, I figured, the sooner I could start breathing again. This was the crucible, these constant meetings, the heat source to bring my neuroses into full flower. My reclined posture was more an act of self-preservation than the outwardly conveyed appearance of rapt attentiveness. I was, in fact, clasping mouth and nostrils in hermetic seal, recycling the carbon dioxide from my exhalations, and waiting for the palpitations, sweating, and trembling to commence. I didn't understand any of it. Medical science had as many names for this ailment as I had symptoms: anxiety hysteria, phobic anxiety state, anxiety neurosis, atypical depression, hyperventilation syndrome, panic attack syndrome. All of it was Greek to this freak. I couldn't believe it possible a mere human brain could cause so much trouble, that simple thought could transport me to an alien world with such a poisonous atmosphere. One thing I did know was my condition. This inability to cope, to maintain, was embarrassing. I'm certain my coworkers thought my episodic fits were choreographed to support an impending disability claim. I had much more grandiose plans than simple insurance fraud, of course, but this knowledge served only to heighten my nervousness. I desired neither sympathy or understanding from the small-minded. Rather, I wanted to be left alone, freed to tend to matters I and I alone deemed to be of consequence, to rule my field of vision, and to hell with my gathered colleagues and their blindness. Let them call me a nut, a crackpot, a libertine. Let them dispute my vision. We were, all of us, captives in a sham of democracy, exploited by a tax-fattened government that considered us industrial slaves, manipulated by social engineers who arrogantly regarded us as lumps of clay. From cradle to grave, our existence was tyrannized by forces beyond the ken of most and the control of all. Even our employer, the old man, considered us disposable commodities, probably. The greedy bastard. This was reality in 1994 America. This was truth, it seemed to me. This was 1,000,000 years of human evolution. 12 of us meeting to discuss methods that might make the old man richer. Somewhere damsels were distressing and time bombs were ticking. We busied ourselves by talking about production control.